Disinformation never stops, and neither do we. Welcome to StopFake, the place where we dissect disinformation and set the record straight on fakes about Ukraine. I'm Marko Suprun, and this week we make short shrift of the following fakes. Ukraine, one of top 5 world leaders in air pollution mortality. Naftogaz loses to Gazprom in EU court. And an upsurge in anti-Semitism in Ukraine. Details ahead. Russian and Ukrainian media disseminated stories this week claiming that Ukraine was one of the top 5 countries in the world for deaths due to air pollution. The source for this claim was a comment made by Ukraine's Environment Minister Ostap during a radio talk show. The minister did indeed say such a thing, but he said it in the past tense, as Ukraine did previously have a high mortality rate due to environmental reasons. This, however, is data from a World Health Organization report from 2012. That is, 6 years ago. According to the State of Global Air report for 2018, Ukraine doesn't even come close to the top countries with lethally dangerous air pollution. The report states that diseases brought on by air pollution are concentrated mostly in Asia, with India and China at the top of the list. The World Economic Forum 2016 rating of the best and worst countries for air pollution also does not include Ukraine among countries with high mortality rates caused by polluted air. Using data from the World Health Organization and the International Energy Agency, the British environmental organization Eco-Experts compiled a map of the world's most toxic countries. Among countries with the largest number of deaths caused by polluted air are Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Egypt, and China. According to WHO data, 9 out of 10 people worldwide breathe air containing high levels of pollutants, and an estimated 7 million people die every year from exposure to polluted air. Scores of Russian media feature stories this week claiming that the Ukrainian company Naftogaz lost a suit against the Russian company Gazprom. These fake claims are a classic case of Russian propagandist manipulation. Naftogaz did not file a suit against Gazprom, but rather against an October 2016 European Commission decision allowing Gazprom to increase its use of the German Opal gas pipeline. This decision allowed Moscow to expand its Nord Stream pipeline and bypass Ukraine when supplying gas to Europe. Furthermore, the matter never actually became a lawsuit, as the European Court of Justice ruled to dismiss the case as inadmissible. In March 2017, Ukraine's Naftogaz filed a lawsuit in the General Court of the European Court of Justice arguing for the cancellation of a European Commission decision expanding Russia's Gazprom access to the Opal gas pipeline. Naftogaz maintained that the European Commission's decision was taken without consulting Ukraine in violation of Article 274 of the Association Agreement between Ukraine and the EU, as well as the EU's obligations under a number of international treaties. Now, lifting restrictions on Gazprom's access to the Opal gas pipeline was the initiative of the German Federal Agency for Gas, Telecom and Transport, the Bundesnetzagentur. The Opal gas pipeline runs along Germany's eastern border. It receives gas from the Nord Stream 1 Baltic Sea pipeline and transports it to consumers in Germany and the Czech Republic. In July 2017, the EU's General Court rejected Poland's bid to halt the Gazprom-Opal pipeline deal. Poland had argued that Gazprom's increased gas transport via Opal would erode Poland's role as a transit country and its influence in future gas supply talks. Rising anti-Semitism and Nazism in Ukraine. Ukrainian glorification of nationalists. Such were the headlines blaring from many pro-Kremlin Russian media at the end of April. These stories were generated by a letter to the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State from 56 congressmen asking the State Department to exert diplomatic pressure on Ukraine and Poland because of what they claim is growing anti-Semitism in those countries. The letter to the State Department was made public on California Democratic Representative Ro Khanna's official Congress website. Khanna is an ardent opponent of providing lethal aid to Ukraine. The letter claims the Ukrainian government is financing anti-Semitism and that the country is glorifying Nazi collaborators. It criticizes the naming of streets after World War II-era Ukrainian independence leaders Roman Shukevich and Stepan Bandera as part of Ukraine's decommunization process and objects to the activities of the nationalist Azov battalion that the congressman connect to Ukraine's Interior Minister Arsen Avakov. Responding to journalists' queries about the letter, Ukraine's Interior Ministry underscored that Ukraine is categorically against the oppression of any national minorities and pointed out that the Azov Battalion is a special operations unit within Ukraine's National Guard protecting Ukraine's territorial integrity in battle and operating exclusively within the framework of Ukraine's laws. In an op-ed piece for The Hill, former advisor to Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, director of AMS, a company specializing in Russian information warfare, Christopher Harrison, wrote that it appears Ro Khanna was duped by Russia into promoting their propaganda. Quote, "It is ridiculous nonsense that Ukraine is beset with a bunch of Nazis. The Russians have been pushing this foolishness for a while. In Russia, if you want to discredit someone, call them a Nazi. Putin is using it to justify his war to his subjects. Russians are not particularly keen on attacking Ukraine, but if it is to free them from the yoke of Nazis, well, that's different," writes Harrison. Anti-Semitism in Ukraine, real or imagined, has been and continues to be a favorite topic for Russia's propaganda machine. At the end of March, Russian media were awash with stories claiming anti-Semitism had exploded in Ukraine, but the country's authorities were hiding it very carefully. Citing a recent Pew Research Center poll conducted in 15 Central and Eastern European countries, these Kremlin-faithful media failed to mention that Ukraine has the lowest levels of anti-Semitism in the region. According to that poll, anti-Semitism levels in Russia are 3 times higher than in Ukraine. That's it for this week. For more dissected fakes as well as tips on how to spot them, visit our website, stopfake.org. Also, make it a habit to check out some of the interesting work being done by our colleagues to battle disinformation in our context section. Look, respect your mind, be vigilant, and don't consume fakes. If you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, send it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.